Welcome to the program today. My name is Manuel Gonzalez, and I am here with a special guest, Bill Koenig. Welcome.
Hi, Mondo. Great to be with you.
You know, before we get started here, I wanted to give everybody an update on Gary. You know, some of you don't see our Facebook or other social media platforms, and Gary, as you might or might not know, he hasn't been feeling well for really about a year, I would say. And last month in February, he ended up going into the hospital. And it ended up being a very good thing, so we appreciate your prayers. The reason why it was good is because they found out that he needed a pacemaker. And so they ended up giving him a pacemaker as well as a couple stents. So he is home now, and he is doing well. He's on the road to recovery. So we certainly would appreciate your prayers for him as he recovers, as well as when he feels well and strong enough, he will be back here with us in studio. I look forward to doing more programs with him. So appreciate your prayers on that. But I do want to help introduce Bill. Some of you know him for sure, but for those of you who might not, Bill, kind of talk to our audience a little bit about you, your journey, where people can learn more about you, just kind of the whole gamut.
Well, 26 years ago in Dallas, we started an internet news service that focuses on Israel and the Middle East and world news from a biblical perspective. Actually, right after President Bush was elected in 2001, the Lord really put it on our heart to move to D.C., move our organization from Dallas to D.C. And just outside of Nashville, before I could even think of that, first of all, the Lord put in my heart, why are you going to Washington? Before I could even think of an answer, it was stand by Israel. And that directive was given to me. I'll never forget it. And that's what we've done for 26 years. Obviously, Israel, the city of Jerusalem, is God's time clock. And we've spoken in churches and congregations in 32 states and 10 countries about the biblical significance of the time that we're living in. We post news every day at our website, watch.org. And I also write a weekly news report, Koenig's Eye View, that comes out every Friday, and it's 20 pages in length, and it's a summary of news that happened that week that was biblically relevant. And as you all know, all being watchmen, it's getting tough to stay up with everything. But it's an exciting time to be alive. It's an exciting time to be doing what you all are doing, Mondo and myself, as watchmen. And we continue to pray for the peace of Jerusalem and the Lord's return. And it seems to be getting closer every day.
You know, I don't want to underestimate as well Bill's influence. He has been with all the movers and shakers through the last 26 years in Washington, D.C. I mean, you have been there, press, you know, you name it, with all the presidents had to go through the Obama years in some sense because of really the hostility to Christianity, which kind of give us an update now because we're seeing so much of that hostility and overt lawlessness and immorality returning again in the administration. You know, not that America's perfect under any president, but no doubt an administration has influence, right?
No doubt about it. The 8 years of being there during George W. Bush's 2 terms, it was a blessing. You know, as a conservative Christian from Dallas, it was great. You know, Bush just had a very significant role, biblical role, which we'll go into a little bit later. But nonetheless, you know, every day the press was after him, just because of Iraq, because of Afghanistan. But any conservative presidents, whether it's Ronald Reagan, George Bush, or Trump, they are unmerciful. They will attack and make it very hard for conservative presidents. The 8 years of Obama, I wrote a book, Revealed Obama's Legacy. We'll never get over those 8 years. There's different parts of, you know, just the mainstream media didn't hold his administration accountable for a lot of things. And that's what's difficult when you see that. And what we have then Trump, you look back at the things that Trump did, I continue to say that Trump did more for Israel than all our presidents combined. He moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. He said Israel has the rights to the Golan Heights. He got out of the Iran nuclear deal. His Secretary of State, Pompeo, said Israel has the rights to build in Judea and Samaria. They're not illegal, according to the San Remo Agreement of 1920 through 22. And he was an extraordinary president. Unfortunately, came up with a peace plan in January 28, 2020, and that changed things dramatically. It kind of fits the parallel of my Eye to Eye book, Facing the Consequences of Dividing Israel. And I wrote a commentary, what was life in America like before January 28, 2020, and what has it been like since January 28th. It's just two different worlds. President Trump had a lot of God's favor, but unfortunately, because of his son-in-law Kushner, he went along with this deal of the century peace plan, the Peace to Prosperity plan that he introduced in January January 28, 2020, and also the Abraham Accords of September 15, 2020. So that disrupted things for President Trump, and now we have Joe Biden, which is Obama 2.0. His first 30 days of executive orders that he put in place, a lot of them got rid of executive orders of President Trump, and it showed what mattered to him. So we've seen a lot, but, and I like to mention this, Mondo, our presidents, despite their mistakes and errors, they have had a divine biblical position. They have had a divine role in bringing things to completion. America might not be obvious in Scripture. Some people say they are, some people not. But for the most part, I don't see the U.S. in prophecy. But no country in the world has done more through our presidents to accelerate us to these final day events that we're watching right now throughout the Middle East with Russia, Turkey, Iran, former Soviet Union countries in the Caucasus, Libya, Sudan, Ethiopia. As well as Israel's relationship with Sunni countries that couldn't look to Obama or Biden for help, so they've developed a closer relationship with Israel. So the bottom line, Mondo, we're living in the most important time in biblical history. And again, the time clock is Israel and Jerusalem. The entire international community wants to divide the city of Jerusalem, and we know that in Zechariah 12:3, it will become a burdensome stone. And those that attempt to move it or do something with it will be injured. And what a blessing to be living in a time such as this.
Yeah, I mean, as we sit and watch, especially some of you who might be older, you see really the history and the tradition of our country being used by God to bring the gospel around the world. And for the most part, we've had, we're Judeo-Christian in our perspective, and that has produced a lot of blessing. And it's when you look at the history in the Scripture about the nation Israel, especially the book of Judges, they're going back and forth, and you see these cycles all through the prophets. You look at Isaiah, even to Jeremiah, Ezekiel. I mean, all the prophets would speak about Israel. They would go through these cycles of prosperity, then they would leave God, and then they'd be in trouble, and then God would rescue them, and then they would be oppressed, and then the whole cycle would start over. And for ours, we've had pretty much a couple of 100 years of prosperity, but now the morality, the immorality, the decline, and I think about the average Jewish person, maybe a prophet, whatever, but the average Jewish guy that's sitting there, that's faithful to God. He's watching the prophets speak to the leadership of Israel, and he has to sit there and watch his country decline because they refuse to repent. And then ultimately, many times, whether it was Assyria in the north taking Israel out, Israel in the northern kingdom.
Yeah.
When you look at, again, just the testimony of Scripture, going back to really the way that God has put Israel at the center. I mean, the passage, Genesis 12:3, if you bless Israel, you'll be blessed. If you bless, Abraham and his descendants, you'll be cursed. If you curse them, you'll be cursed. So we see that outworking of, again, surprisingly, Trump had done so much for Israel, the embassy, and just for Christians. And again, that doesn't just throw him out the window. But in this particular instance, he went to divide the land. We see in the book of Amos, but woe to those who divide the land. And so as we see after the election, we won't even just go into that, but now under this new administration, as you said, we have Obama 2.0. And one of the things that, let's shift to a little bit more of geopolitics. We see the absolute detriment of how we left Afghanistan. That made us look extremely weak, and to the two other powers that are out there, it's in China and Russia. So here we are, in the midst of Ukraine. Ukraine, as you're watching this, Ukraine has already been invaded. Let's talk a little bit about Ukraine as well as the new world order idea. I mean, let's talk about that.
Well, when you look at what the world was like during Trump's 4 years, every time the Arabs and Middle East countries, the OPEC countries, would start to raise their price of crude oil, he said, okay, fine, you can defend yourself. and he came out boldly. And I remember as if it was yesterday, 65, 70 bucks a barrel, and say, hey, wait a second. You know, if you're going to do this and affect our economy this way, then you're going to have to defend yourself. And they immediately stopped.
And it was down to 35 bucks or lower.
Yeah, it was incredible. It was incredible. And especially at 35 coming out of the coronavirus crisis when it just absolutely plummeted. But then when that was pre-COVID, when it was around 65, 70, and he told Prince Salman there in Saudi Arabia and some of the other OPEC countries, okay, fine. You want to defend yourself? Have at it. But it worked.
It worked.
And then, I'll never forget, he's sitting there at Mar-a-Lago having dinner with the premier of China Z. And between dinner and dessert, he sends in 56 cruise missiles into Syria. I mean, wow. It wasn't like a day later or a week later. It was between dinner and dessert.
Yeah.
Wow. That and he.
It showed his strength.
Oh, absolutely, Mondo, and also the gift of his unpredictability.
Yeah,
it really worked his strength. And Joe Biden's back in office right now, and he and Obama were the ones that favored bringing all our troops out of Iraq. Well, that birthed ISIS, which became a huge problem. And then and you look at what he's done in Afghanistan, that's a debacle. It's so stupid you'd have to think it's on purpose. Yeah. And we're still analyzing and interpreting that decision, but that's a debacle. You have all these people that need to be brought out of the country, and he takes our troops out? I mean, it's beyond comprehension.
Well, I'm sure you heard and maybe you did too, the generals. I watched a report after this had happened, and they have the generals there, and they're given a press report. And they said, this happened perfectly according to plan. And I'm like, are you in the same universe as me? Unless, like you mentioned, maybe it was perfectly according to plan. I mean, there's no other option. They're not that dumb, are they?
No. And there were some generals that said, no, we told Biden at least leave 2,500, the 2,500 troops we had in there to bring people to safety. And Trump and Pompeo worked a deal out with the Taliban and with the help of Qatar, the country Qatar. But there was contingencies. Of course, the mainstream media tried to blame Trump for this effort at trying to negotiate a deal with the Taliban, and that's not true. I can guarantee that departure would have been tremendously different, and it may never have happened because the contingencies Trump and Pompeo put in place would have probably led to that never happening. But what a sign to our allies in the Middle East.
Yeah. We'll betray you. Yeah.
And the same thing when you got North Korea, you've got China and Russia looking at this, unfortunately, amateur show at the White House with Biden, Harris, Sullivan, Blinken, and then the guys there at the Pentagon. I mean, unfortunately, this is not our best. And unfortunately, it's sending the wrong message to our enemies. And, you can look what's happening in Ukraine right now, and some of the statements that Biden said, Russia's going to attack them for sure. Well, why don't you help them and put other equipment in there before this happens?
Well, especially when you think about, this isn't, again, I'm nobody, who am I, in the sense of watching it, but I'm not a military strategist, but yet everybody knew, and Putin was not hiding that he was surrounding all of them with couple 100,000 troops or whatever. And so right then, why were we not sending in military or hardware now that the supply chains are broken? It can't happen now.
Absolutely. General Kellogg said it well. He said Russia has their best troops on the borders. They have their best equipment. They have their special forces. So it looks, we need to, and General Keane as well as General Boykin said, they're going to attack. It was obvious. I mean, why do you expend this effort and then bump your troop level to 175,000? I mean, you know what's going to happen. And I think, just the fact, once again, it shows this lack of professionalism. And unfortunately, this is probably the weakest, if not weakest, administration we've had in our country in place at the most critical time for our country. And the pressure being put on Putin right now, it's increasing. They're shutting down, unfortunately, the Russian people. It's not their war, but they're the ones that are getting hurt with the ruble crash. The oligarchs are still making their money off that Russian oil that continues to be purchased. But it's a very unfortunate time, and it could happen, Mondo, where they're going to corner Putin at some point. And how will he respond? Our concern here in the U.S. is obviously cyber attack on our power grid, our military infrastructure, and the other thing is he's threatened to use. He's heightened the alert of their nuclear missiles, not at the highest level yet, but that's obviously a concern too. And if Putin thinks he is losing and possibly lose his life, he might do some things that are drastic. That's a concern.
Yeah. Let's talk, kind of established, the chaos that's going on really in the world right now. In the sense of prophetically, how does this shape the prophetic scene for us? I mean, I'm not saying that Jesus is coming next week. He could certainly, the rapture, he could come anytime. But in the sense of where we're going with the New World Order, the globalism, how does this latest war in Ukraine and the players, right? I mean, if you remember this, China, the report is China, Xi told him, hey, make sure to do this after the Olympics because we want to keep that. And so sure enough, he waited. Putin went in after. So prophetically speaking, kind of give us your thoughts on that.
Well, you got the players aligning. What's interesting is Turkey is part of NATO. And there's a fair amount of Turkey. I heard of this today, that there's a fair amount of people from Turkey that are inside Ukraine, and Erdogan is not pleased with what's happening. And there's a possibility of having a lot of his people stranded there. They're part of NATO. They're, Russia, Turkey, Iran, Sudan, Libya, which is very close to Russia, and the former Soviet Union countries in the Caucasian Mountains. I mean, this is the assemblage of the Ezekiel 37 and 38. And most people have always thought Russia is Magog, and then the leader of Russia would be Gog. So some people, it's interesting, more and more people are considering the possibility that Gog might even be the Turkish leader and Magog Turkey. That's being reviewed, debated, and studied right now. So the question is, how long will Putin survive all of this? And throughout the years, I think I'll put it this way. There is no doubt that the United States and Russia are the facilitators of the final days. There is no doubt of their significant role in bringing things to completion. And 37, you look at Ezekiel 37, 38, and many of the prophecy people over the years have believed that Russia is the main player. Well, we certainly are watching Putin behave differently, Mondo, than we expected. Condoleezza Rice, Macron from France said this is not the man that they've known, that they've met, that they've worked with in the past. His behavior, some people say it's possessed, and other people are saying he's as shrewd and crafty as
he's calm in his speeches.
Yeah, he's calm in his speeches. So yeah, that says a lot. Mm-hmm. So, but again, very significant role. It's he'd like to see NATO bust and break. It's not happening right now. Europe is Ukraine now, and now Moldova, and then Finland and Sweden are like to be part of the EU. So it's there's a lot of shuffling going on right now, but nonetheless, very, very significant biblically.
When you look at the, again, just go back a couple of years ago, and what we're going to see more and more of this is relates to energy independence, and we were energy independent. We were under Trump's deregulation and other things, and yet it's, again, who am I? Nobody. But yet you think, okay, if we've seen this in the past, this isn't anything new, that Putin would shut off or threaten to shut off gas to Europe, to Germany, all these guys. Why in advance were we not helping to do this? I mean, recently the recent administration shut down some pipeline stuff. And so it's amazing to watch the incompetence of what is happening. But we're going to take a little break here, but I want to get back to this because one of the things, if you, again, are a follower of our ministry, we write about these things on a monthly basis in our magazine. And so we want to take a little break here. Bill has written for our magazine prior and hopefully will again. And so we'll take a little break here. You can see how you can stay up to date with our monthly magazine.
Thanks for joining us today. I'm Bob Ulrich, Gary Stearman's partner and the co-founder of Prophecy Watchers. I would love to tell you how you can become a subscriber to our wonderful prophecy magazine, creatively named The Prophecy Watcher. And ready for this? How you can get 8 powerful prophecy DVDs as a free bonus for subscribing today. Every day, the ancient prophecies of the Bible get more and more exciting as we watch world events come into perfect alignment with the words of the ancient prophets. Examine the pre-trib rapture doctrine taught by the Apostle Paul. Come to a deeper understanding of the giants of Genesis 6 and the real reason for the flood of Noah. Read the shocking things we see coming out of the world of science and technology, mind-blowing advances in transhumanism and artificial intelligence. Keep a close eye for a series of wars coming very soon to the Middle East. The Bible's a supernatural book, and we enjoy covering the fringe subjects and dark corners of Scripture as well. UFOs, the Nephilim, the miracles of the Bible, and so much more. It's a one-of-a-kind publication full of articles that will make you a Bible prophecy expert and prepare you for the future. We have a very special subscription offer for you today. For your gift of $50 or more to support the worldwide outreach of Prophecy Watchers, you can subscribe to either the digital version or the print version of our magazine. And here's the best part. In addition to receiving 12 monthly issues of the magazine, this offer comes with a fantastic bonus: 8 DVDs from some of the leading prophecy experts in the world today. 8 DVDs plus 12 issues of the magazine represents a $200 value, but it's available today for your gift of just $50 or more to support the work of Prophecy Watchers. This offer is available anywhere in the USA and will ship both the magazine and the DVDs absolutely free. Don't wait or hesitate. Call the toll-free number on your screen or visit our online bookstore at prophecywatchers.tv to take advantage of this limited time offer. Looking at the future through the lens of Bible prophecy is the entire focus of this ministry. We're motivated like never before by our desire to tell the world that Jesus is the only answer for these troubling times. And we do believe that He's coming back very soon, just as He promised. Partner with us today. Help us take God's message of salvation through Jesus Christ to the whole world.
Well, Bill, before the break, we were just talking about the energy independence that we had and how this has been Ukraine, the pipelines going across there, Europe completely held hostage by Russia. And I see this as contributing as well to maybe in the future with the hooks in the jaws of Israel they've already been solicited to try to provide natural gas through their field, the Tamar field and the Leviathan field. So you can see that shaping up. But before let's move on from that, because my question just recently, Forbes magazine, when we think about globalism, they've come out, we have a few minutes left, they came out with this, regardless of how you feel about the vaccine, okay, we're talking about the ramifications of the vaccine, and they came out with a vaccine passport. Kind of talk about that.
Yeah, it's a smart health card, and we've got 30 states now that are aligning with this plan, and the plan is to have a smart health card that documents when you've been vaccinated. And of course, they're doing this, they say, to protect yourself against those that might not have been vaccinated. And there are some red states, conservative states, that are part of this plan. And it's, it'll be tied into a QR code. So this is, we heard a lot about vaccine passports in Europe. And this is going to be an effort. There's 100 healthcare systems right now in hospitals that have signed on to this smart card. And
quietly, right? I mean, this.
Oh,
remember,
yeah,
I thought this was dead, but quietly it's not died.
Absolutely, this has been going on for a while. I've been following this for about a year and a half. You got Microsoft, Salesforce, Oracle, and the Mayo Clinic that are involved in developing this smart health card. So you got 100 major health services and hospitals across the country that are part of it. And then, they're going to have Walmart and all the drugstores, CVS, Walgreens, all part of this. And when you've been vaccinated, you'll have a smart health card that you can show that you've been vaccinated. And it's going to lead to other things, as we know, Mondo. So this is, like you said, it's just so quietly and subtly done. And it's a company called Bindle. that's been the one that's been handling this with the states, and so quietly, so subtly, and conservative states that are also becoming part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, you would think that, hey, you know, the restrictions are relatively gone in most states, even some of the most liberal states or blue states, cities, New York, Los Angeles, and hey, COVID's going down, which is awesome. So no need, right? You know, why come up with a solution when there's no problem?
Well, what's interesting is this is for future purposes. It's these gradual steps that are ominous and dangerous over time. They said in the article, the Forbes article, that 200 million people have been jabbed. And fortunately right now, and this was according to Dr. Robert Malone, I saw him and Laura Ingham right before Christmas, that the Omicron is an early Christmas gift because this is going to lead to herd immunity. And look at how fast things have changed. Look at the sports arenas. Look at the football stadiums during the playoffs and the Super Bowl and all the bowl games. They were packed out, and we had no breakouts. So Malone and Hatfield were right. And you know, a lot of people didn't get the jab. They have natural antibodies. I was talking to two different well-known doctors recently, Bhattacharya at a meeting, and then I've heard Dr. McCullough from Dallas say that these antibodies are lifetime. They're lifetime antibodies. And when I was talking to Bhattacharya, there was another person there that said that she even understood that people that got the Spanish flu in 1918, the few that are living, still have the antibodies. So I'm hopeful that the antibodies from the people that got it will be sufficient. You know, obviously there's concern about a future variant or a future mutation coming through, but for right now, life is getting back to somewhat normal pretty fast, except some of these other things we've talked about.
Well, Bill, we're out of time for today. Hopefully stick around, we'll do another one. And as Bill mentioned, as we see, I mean, this is Forbes magazine talking about this passport system that has been quietly underway. And again, there are naturally some conveniences for this, but it's when we think about the future mark of the beast and the requirement to have a certain mark so you can't buy or sell. I mean, these are the systems that are going to be in place that are going to help set the stage for when that finally does happen. It'll be a nice transition in. But anyways, this is all kind of we got for today, but we're definitely going to talk more. There's so much that we need to get to, and we just scratched the surface. But we certainly appreciate your prayers and support for what we do here. As well, we encourage you to find us on our other platforms if you are able. We're on Rumble, we're on YouTube. You can go to prophecywatchers.com, find our videos there, as well as download our app. A variety of ways that you can find us for more updates than what you just might get on television. But again, prayers and support are just completely valuable to us. So we appreciate that. And thank you. As always, we're watching. You keep watching. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us on Prophecy Watchers. You can find us on the web at prophecywatchers.com, where you can sign up for our free email newsletter. In the meantime, keep watching, everybody, and we'll see you soon.